Shalom Aleichem, everybody, and I hope that everybody's having a wonderful evening. With just a couple of days until Rosh Hashanah, Baruch Hashem, we have an opportunity to speak about, turn that on, get a little more light in here, there we go, to talk about movement. That's the topic of this evening's conversation, is the halachas, the ideas, the concepts of movement, the opportunities that we have in the world of movement. Now, truthfully, the world of movement is probably the most important in all of Yiddishkeit. What do I mean, right? Movement is the most important aspect of all of Yiddishkeit. So the pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, Asher bara Elokim la'asais. Hashem created the world to do, for a world of action, a world of doing, a world of engagement, a world of bringing things from the world of thought and the world of speech into the world of action. And in many ways, this is the paradigmatic challenge of existing, of being a human being, of being an Eved Hashem, is to live in a world of action as opposed to simply in a world of speech or in a world of thought. Now, to spell it out in very simple language, to understand what does it mean that we are movers, we're supposed to be moving, we're supposed to be doing things in the world of action and the world of activity. So we need to point out that of the 613 mitzvahs, the vast majority of them exist in the world of action. The vast majority of them. Arguably, with a couple of exceptions, 95% of our day is taken up in the world of action. And all of the things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu really wants us to engage in are in the world of activities, in the world of action. Our religion is different amongst other religions of the world. Our belief system is different. Is that Yiddishkeit, at the end of the day, as Rabbi Binyamin Blach has in his book Understanding Judaism, has a good line there. He says, Yiddishkeit is a religion of deed more than it is of creed. We're less interested in what a person believes. Now, that's not to say that it's unimportant, but we are less interested in what a person believes than what they do. It is in the world of action and activity that a Jew is a Jew. It's in the world of action and activity that we make the difference in the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to make, that we give good reason for our existence. See, for a Jew to be a disembodied, thought, to float around and not be engaged in the world of maisim, in the world of activities, such a thing is not part of our worldview. Now, of course, Talmud Torah is paramount. Nobody can disregard the importance of Talmud Torah. But the Gemara asks the question, what's more important, learning or doing? What's more important, learning or doing? Says the Gemara, learning. Oh, but that's not what the topic of the shir is. Says the Gemara, no. Because if you learn, then you'll be able to do. Meaning all of our learning, all of our engagement in the world of ideas is to bring it into the world of action, to bring it into the world of activity, to bring it into the world of movement. And I suppose we'll start with a story, with a little bit of a story, and then I want to show you a Kedushas Lev B'Dicheva. So you'll see that up on the screen in a moment. There you go. The story's like this. There's a sefer that I picked up a little while ago. The sefer is called Naharei Eish. It was recently republished. Naharei Eish, Eish stands for Avram Shimon. This was The Rivers of Fire. It's an astounding sefer. Naharei Eish was written by the students of Rav Shimon Zelachav, Avram Shimon Halevi Horowitz of Zelachav. He was the Mashgiach Ruchani of Yeshivas Chacham Lublin before the Second World War. There was some politics, and he ended up leaving the yeshiva at a certain point in time. But he was a tremendous Gaon and an awesome Ilui and Talmid Chacham. He was known before the war as the biggest Baki in all of Europe. I mean, he knew Shas cold, backwards, forwards, inside out. He was holding in everything. Tremendous Ilui, tremendous Talmid Chacham. So when he came first to Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, so he saw that the boys were learning Maseches Menachos. Maseches Menachos is not well known to be an easy Masechta. It's not well known in general, Maseches Menachos. So Rav Shimon Zelachava, he shows up in the yeshiva and he sees the guys are hacking about Maseches Menachos. So he starts firing them. He starts asking them questions. So he asks a question this way and he asks a question that way, and they're holding in all of the lamdas. All of the lamdas. All of the chakiras, all of the logical splicings, and all of the svaras, all of the rationale, all of the ideas, everything in the whole world. They're understanding. Everything is great. They understand everything that's going on in the world of Menachos. And then he looks at them and he says, Bachrim, let me ask you a question. He says, let's say I'm a Kohen. He was a Levi. He says, let's say I'm a Kohen. And I'm coming to the Beis HaMikdash. It's my first day on the job. Sorry. It's my first day on the job. I've never brought a Korban Mincha before. Can somebody please just give me step by step, how I'm supposed to bring a Korban Mincha? How do you bring the Mincha? And the Brachim looked at each other like all of these like vacant stares. He says, you're learning Menachos. How do you bring a Mincha? How do you bring it? No idea. No idea. So he says, it seems to be that you are not learning a Libud Hilchasa. You are not learning in order for you to be able to understand what that means in the world of action, in the world of activity. It's not enough just to be floating around with great ideas. You've got to bring it into the world of action. You've got to bring it into the world of activity, even if we don't have the capacity to do those actions and activities today. The purpose of learning about them is to know what to do about it. Gemara in Sanhedrin explains that Domi and Achitophel were like the two biggest Talmidei Chachamim in the generation of David HaMelech. The two biggest Talmidei Chachamim. They knew everything backwards, forwards, inside out. Backwards, forwards, and inside out. So how come they failed? Both of them had gruesome and horrible deaths. And please got off the Yontif. We're going to start our Tanakh Be'iyun series. So we'll talk about these sugyas then. But how come Doeg and Achitophel failed? They fell so cataclysmically. So the Gemara says because all of their learning was Shaloi Ali B'Dei Hilchasa. They were building, the Gemara says, a Migdal Pereach Ba'avir, towers that were floating in the sky. They were building these big intellectual palaces. Halacha, nobody was bringing it into the world of action. Nobody was bringing it into the world of action. Not Doeg, not Achitophel, and if they weren't bringing it into the world of action, it meant that they were disconnected from the world of activity. They were living only in the world of thought. Truth is, on Tisha B'Av we bemoan this, we cry about this. On Tisha B'Av we cry that we don't have Eretz Yisrael, we don't have Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel. Baruch Hashem, today we do. A little bit, not like it was, and not like it should be, and not like it will be. But we don't have full Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel. We don't have Beis HaMikdash, we don't have Karbanos. We're missing a lot. What do we have? The Kina bemoans ve'ein shiur rak hatarazos. We're going to say in the Slichos as well. Ein shiur rak hatarazos. All that we have left is the Torah. So you said, all we have left is Torah. Torah is everything. Yeah, that's true. Torah is everything up here. But the rest of me, the rest of the body of the Jewish people is not just big heads. We're supposed to have fingers and toes, arms and legs. We're supposed to do things with it. And this is the Berditchever points out. The piece is in Parshas Beshalach, but it refers to a famous Gemara in Maseches Brachos. The Gemara in Maseches Brachos asks the question, how do you know where the institution of davening came from? Meaning, why do we daven the way that we do? So the Gemara has two possibilities. The Gemara says maybe davening is keneged korbanos tiknum. Maybe the davening was instituted because of the korbanos, because we bring korbanos. and we didn't get a chance for the last 2,000 years to bring korbanos, but that's okay. We have Shachris for the morning korban, Mincha for the afternoon korban, Mariv for the evening korban, that the tefillas are connected the davening. Okay, meaning the tefillas are connected the korbanos. That's where our davening comes from. Alternatively, maybe it's connected to the avos that Abraham instituted Shachris, and Yitzchak instituted Mincha, and Yaakov instituted Mariv. Good. We used to joke in yeshiva that how do you know that Yitzchak instituted Mincha? Maybe he just woke up late for Shachris, right? Probably didn't happen by Yitzchak, but it's a good joke for teenagers that would like to wake up late. So the Gemara tells us, how do you know that Abraham Avinu instituted Tefillah Shachris? Doesn't say anywhere in Chumash, nowhere in Chumash that Abraham davened Shachris. Instead, what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says from the pasuk, Parshas Vayerev, Vayashkem Abraham b'boker, Vayamed Shamas B'nei Hashem. Abraham woke up in the morning, Vayamed Sham, and he stood there. It's B'nei Hashem. He stood there. Says the Gemara, Ve'ein Amida Ela Tefillah. That the only instance that we have of Amida in Tanakh is Tefillah. Anytime that it says Amida, standing still, that means davening. How do you know? So the Gemara says, because the pasuk says by Pinchas, all the way in Sefer Dvarim, in Sefer Bamidbar, says Vayamad Pinchas Vayipalel. Pinchas stood up Vayipalel. Doesn't mean that he davened in that context. It means that he exacted judgment, when he went out to take care of Zimri. So Vayamad Pinchas Vayipalel is a lashon of tefillah. So the Gemara seems to be catches out that Amile by Avram, he was talking to Hashem, so that must mean there is davening. And Pinchas says Vayipalel. B'dichava asks an obvious question. The Gemara is saying a line, Ein Amida Ela Tefillah. The only time that Amida means, the only thing that Amida means in Tanakh is Tefillah, is davening. Says, but a lot of bad people stood up as well in Tanakh. We have standing up by a lot of Rishonim. There's a lot of bad people that stand. That's true too. So, what, Parah stood up, he was davening? It says Eglon stood up, he was davening? All of these people were davening? So says the B'dichava, no. Ein Amida Ela Tefillah is only true by tzaddikim. What does it mean that it's only true by tzaddikim? Says the B'dichava as follows. He says, we have two modalities. And this frames the entirety of Jewish life. Davening is referred to as Amida, standing still. Learning halacha, keeping halacha, learning the Torah and applying the Torah is called halacha. Walking, moving, getting from one place to another. Ein Amida Ela Tefillah. Davening means standing still. But that's only true if the rest of your life is spent moving. That's only true if for the rest of your life you're walking around. You're engaged in activities. It says because to be a Jew is to be moving. To be a human being is to be moving. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Navi, I'm going to give you walking people amongst these standing angels. Angels cannot change. Angels cannot do. Angels cannot move. That's why Raglam Regel Yushara, they have one straight leg. That's what we try to embody in davening. Why? Because davening, says the B'dichava, is the only time that a Jew is not moving. Because then move arrived. When you're Omer Lifnei HaMelech, when you're standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that's not the time to move. It's the only time that a Jew has a license not to be moving, not to be engaged in the world of activity. Any other time, we got to be moving, we got to be doing, we got to be engaging, we got to be building. Why? Why is it so important that a Jew is moving and engaging and building and doing? So, this is a question that the Baal HaTanya deals with, since it's Elul. I thought it's going to be Rosh Hashanah. It's worth seeing inside the Baal HaTanya. The beginning of Igeres HaTshuva. He makes it as a parenthetical comment. But it's worth understanding that we have a hierarchy of mitzvahs. There are certain mitzvahs that we consider to be more important than other mitzvahs, and certain averos that we consider to be worse than other averos. And every now and then you have a clash between those two. Every now and then you have a tussle, a fight between them. So the Gemara says in Maseches Yuma Daf Pevav that there's arba chaluki kapara. There are 4 different levels of doing kapara. Discuss this with some of the chavra in the afternoon kol shir this afternoon. The 4 levels of kapara of achieving atonement. What are the 4 levels of achieving atonement? So the Gemara says that if you violated a mitzvah, a positive commandment, you didn't put on tefillin, you didn't daven, you didn't say shema, you didn't bench, right? Benchophobia, right? You were going to bench and then you went somewhere and then you forgot to bench. Okay, so you did an avera. What's the avera? Is that you didn't do the mitzvah of benching. So how do you do tshuva for that? How do you get atonement for that? Says the Gemara, you do tshuva. You don't budge from that place until Hashem says, don't worry about it, you're done. You did tshuva, you're good. But what if a person, ate a cheeseburger? So says the Gemara, no, it doesn't work like that. You need both tshuva and Yom Kippur. You didn't bench, you can do tshuva, you don't need Yom Kippur to atone for you. You can do that all by yourself right then and there, and Hashem forgives you right away. But a person ate a cheeseburger, did something that they weren't proud of, that they weren't supposed to do. Good. Now you want to get rid of that avera, so you have to do tshuva and wait for Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur will clean up the mess. So it seems to be that not doing a positive mitzvah, not doing the positive mitzvah, is less serious than doing a negative avera, than transgressing. Because it's harder to do tshuva for something negative. You neglected to do something positive. No, beseda. You neglected to do something positive, that's not a good thing. Shouldn't have done that, but Hashem will forgive you. You actively did something wrong? Now it's much more complicated. Now you have to go and you have to do tshuva. There's different levels of the tshuva that you have to do. Sometimes you have to get punishments, and sometimes even for chila Hashem, a person only with death is it fully atoned. It seems to be that negative averas, not to do those things, that is much more severe, much more intense. But ask the Baal HaTanya as follows: if that is true, if it is true that it's much more severe to do something negative than to not do something positive, then how come we have a principle in many, many places in Shas of esei doiche lo saseh, that a positive mitzvah pushes aside a negative mitzvah? For example, the Gemara in Yevamos gives a classic example of Yibum. We don't do that very much today. But we also have another classic example of the big day kahuna, the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol would wear shatnez. How could the Kohen Gadol wear a mixture of wool and linen? So says the Gemara, because it's a mitzvah, it's a positive mitzvah, pushes aside a negative mitzvah. But negative mitzvahs are more severe than positive mitzvahs. So on the scale of hierarchies, it's harder to atone for doing the wrong thing than by not doing the right thing. So if you're hedging your bets, so a negative mitzvah should always push away a positive mitzvah. Says the Baal HaTanya, take a look at this. This is tremendous. Baal HaTanya points out, he says, even though with regards to fulfilling a positive mitzvah, gedola, doiches lo saseh, it says, doing a positive mitzvah is what you're here to do. It means bringing down the light of Hashem into the world, connecting this world to the Ribbon Shalom, this world where Hashem is hidden, to reveal the presence of Hashem in this world. That's what we're doing with our positive mitzvahs. It says, and it also inspires us internally. You, master of all worlds, you have made us transcendent through telling us to do this. And by doing this, we are now becoming transformed, different, better people. He says, but when it comes to doing tshuva, you didn't bench. So you do tshuva. So even though you have atoned for not doing what Hashem wanted, for rebelling against the Master of all worlds, for disobeying the order of Hashem, you didn't do what the king said. Okay, so now you didn't do it. You didn't do what the king said. So Hashem says, fine, forgiven. He says, Mikol Makom, nevertheless, ha'or neder, the light that you were going to bring out into the world is now gone. That opportunity can never, ever, ever be replaced. You can never bring it back. You can never bring back that lost opportunity. Even though Hashem says, don't worry about it. From now on, every other benching you'll do. I love you. Hashem can forgive us entirely. But missing out on that light being brought into the world, that's now, you can't do anything about it. Like the pasuk says, "Muvas lo yachol liskan," that you cannot fix something that was broken. What does that mean? Shebitul kriya shema shel avris. It means a person that skipped out and like saying Shema. What does it mean that which is broken cannot be fixed? That which is crooked cannot be straightened? That which is missing cannot be counted. It doesn't mean that tshuva is impossible. Of course tshuva is possible. But you can always do tshuva. What we cannot do is bring the light of Hashem into the world that we didn't bring. We can do everything that we can to make up for it. But that little bit, that shred of elikus, of godliness that we could have brought into the world, we missed out on. That, my dear friends, that's the world of action. That's the world of activity. The world of activity means doing things that bring Hashem into the world through activity, not just by thought. Thought alone doesn't cut it. Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't make us simply to pontificate on top of a mountain. And I'll give you a raya for this. I'll give you a proof. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us in this world, in the Olam Asiyah, in the world of activity. Because our job is to engage in activities. Our job is to engage in the world of doing, in the world of moving and shaking and changing. And that is the world of moving. It's the world of halacha, of doing, of walking, of getting from one place to another place. I have this conversation with Talmidim every time the conversation comes up. Everybody wants to know about swimming on Shabbos, especially it's hot in Florida in the summer. You want to know, is a mutter to swim on Shabbos? So they said to me, Rabbi, where does it say that you're not allowed to swim on Shabbos? Where does it say you're not allowed to swim? I say anyway, Shulchan Aruch, that you're not allowed to swim on Shabbos. So you're going to kvetch out. There's lots of details, right? So what do people say? Okay, so I'm not going to build a raft. The raft building conversation is only a problem if you're talking about an infinity pool, right? That slopes down, you don't have a lip around. Okay, so we're going to dispense with the infinity pool. But I don't know if an infinity pool it's not going to be. What about, I'm going to squeeze out my bathing suit. No, beside it. So I will be makbid, I won't squeeze out my bathing suit. You're going to water the grass. Don't worry, I'm not going to water the grass. There's no grass, it's all paved. I don't have to worry about that. So what's the problem? Rabbi? What's the problem swimming on Shabbos? So then you're gonna find out that it's a takana, maybe the Rabbanan, like Rabbeinu Tam and the Ramban. What about Gzeres HaBalon in the bathhouse? That Rabbi, come now. At the end of the day, how bad is it what I did here? So it happens to be that Rabbi Vadia Yosef's son asks a question to Rabbi Vadia. This is recorded in Yalkut Yosef, where it comes out that according to Sfardim that they don't even need to be machmir for the opinion that maybe there's a Gzeres HaBalonim. He goes through 9 different responses. And he says, I asked all of them to my father and he said to me, yeah, it's true. It seemed to be that for Sfardim, it should be mutter to swim on Shabbos. He says, but we definitely will never allow it. Rabbi Vadia, who was koch the Tera Adif, that you always need to find a way to be mekel. How come you don't want to say that it's mutter to swim on Shabbos? So I always say to the Talmidim, because everybody wants to know, can you swim in Shabbos? I say to the Chavra, you have to understand that imagine a person would sleep the whole of Shabbos. The whole of Shabbos. They would sleep through the whole of Shabbos. Have they violated Shabbos? No. Have they kept Shabbos? Maybe. In the not broken it. Did they experience Shabbos? Did they engage with Shabbos? Did they become different as a result of Shabbos? Did the world become different as a result of their Shmir Shabbos? No. Because Shabbos is 2 things. Shabbos is a negative commandment. That's called Shomer Shema Shabbos, keep Shabbos, observe Shabbos. But then there is another mitzvah called Zocher Shema Shabbos HaKadosh. Make Shabbos special. Make Shabbos elevated. Make Shabbos transcendent. Make Shabbos important. Make Shabbos the most important day of the whole week. That's called Zocher Shema Shabbos HaKadosh. And even a person that swims on Shabbos, technically, might or might not be in violation of Shabbos Yom Shabbos. Maybe they didn't violate not keeping, they didn't violate any isurim, any prohibitions on Shabbos. Did they observe Zocher Shabbos? Did they make Shabbos special? Was Shabbos the most important day of the week for them? Hard to argue that. Like, for example, if you have a husband and wife that decide that they're going to go out there, husband says to his wife, it's your birthday, I'm going to take you out for a fancy dinner. What restaurant do you want to go to? So she tells him the restaurant. She says, and what do you want to order? What's your favorite thing? Let's get your favorite thing in the world. And she gets her favorite thing, and he gets his favorite thing. And then he sits there the whole night on his phone, right? The whole night like this, right? Not even looking, not making eye contact. Not. Was he Yotze taking her for dinner for her birthday? Yes. They'll be able to take the picture, the selfie, and put it on Instagram and say #blessed. Psst, so lucky. Did they experience anything? Did they bring something into their marriage? Did they bring something into the world of Asiya, to the world of activity? No. That opportunity was squandered. And by squandering that opportunity, what they lose out on is a deeper relationship, is a more profound relationship. Which is why all of our activities, all of our mitzvahs, all of our halachas come into the world of action, because that's what brings Hashem into the world. It's a world of movement. It's a world of movement. But you're going to say to me, Rabbi, I understand that activity is what makes a difference, but I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not holding by that madrega. I'm not living in that world. Sometimes I feel like, I've got to think about this a little bit more. I'm not ready to take on those things. I'm not ready to engage in the world of action. So I'll share with you a famous Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch says this in many, many places. First time that he says this, fascinatingly, is in Parshas Boy, talking about not breaking the bones of the Korban Pesach for Esem L'Sishbaru Boy. But he says this by building the Mishkan as well, and that's where he really fleshes out the idea. We'll zoom in here a little bit so that you can see clearly. This is the famous principle of the Chinuch, Acharei ha'pu'ulos nimshachos halavavos, that our activities inform and influence the world of our action, of our thoughts. And he writes like this. He says, Halo yiduim hadvarim u'berurim she'hakol lehachshir gufasenu, everything, building the Mishkan, that entire project, which was the only thing that happened in the Midbar, aside from the war against Amalek. For another time we'll discuss that. Everything in the Midbar was magic, was hocus pocus. Man came from Shemayim, water came from a rock, laundry was done by the clouds, paving was done by the clouds of glory, figuring out where to go, there was no GPS, nobody had to do any kind of navigation, you had a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud, everything, hocus pocus, magic, nisim min hashamayim. The only thing that there were no nisim, everybody had to do with masi yadayim, with their hands, with their work, was building the Mishkan. Says the Sefer HaChinuch, Shakol lahachshir gufoseinu. The whole institution of building the Mishkan, of building, was to transform our bodies, our physical selves, into something more sublime, more elevated. He says, Ki hagufos yichshuru al yidei ha'pu'ulos. The only way to make your body better is through doing activities. That's how you make your body into a better body. He says, "V'ribas ha'pu'ulos ha'tovos," and by doing many good things, by creating good and healthy habits, v'roiv hasmadasam, and by repeating them constantly with consistency. He says, "Machshavas halev metaros mislavnos mizdakikas." Even the thoughts, the murmurings of our hearts, the deepest intuitions of our personalities are purified and cleansed and flushed out as a result of the activities that we do. This is the big yesod that the Sefer HaChinuch and all of the Kadmonim speak about. which is if you're not feeling ready to move, that's okay. You move anyway. Because by moving, you become something more. And this, of course, is the yesod of all of the mitzvahs that we do. If a person trains themselves to give tzedakah, they will become a Baal tzedakah. Much more than a person that thinks about, meditates upon, pontificates upon tzedakah. They will not become a Baal tzedakah. They might become a deep thinker about tzedakah. But thoughts die when people die. Actions, activities, have ramifications long after any human being leaves this world. Action is where it's at. Movement is where it's at. Person struggles with healthy eating. So you can think about it for months and months. Or a person could say, look, I'm just going to throw out the junk food. I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to do something. Once I start doing things, so then the next thing becomes more apparent. The capacity for me to do and become and learn and grow more becomes much more readily apparent. A person says, I want to exercise. So this was a big avodah for me. I want to exercise. I want to move. The only way to move is to move. I am not trained. I'm not ready. I don't know what to do. So you know that at the very least it requires putting on socks and putting on sneakers. And it involves walking outside. It involves taking one step in front of another. I had no idea what to do when I started running. But you figure it out. You figure it out. There was a study that was done a couple of years ago with two groups of pottery students. For those that are holding in pottery students, there was a study that was done with two groups of pottery students. One group was told, you have a semester to design the best pot possible, the best vase, whatever it was, best earthenware goblet, whatever it was. Design it and then execute it. But you're going to spend half of the time designing it, and then you'll figure out at the end, more than half the time. At the end, you'll make it after you figure out the design. Everybody then in that group is going to make a goblet. It's going to make a vase. It's going to make a flower pot. And then the other chavra were told, he has a bunch of clay. He has one of those spinning wheels. Make goblets. Make pots. Make vases. Make stuff. Don't worry about the design. Think about it in your head for a second and just do it. And then at the end, by the last session, they got the chavra from the first group and the second group all to make the best vase that they could. And then they brought in an expert to judge which ones were better. Lo and behold, the ones that spent most of their time designing had fewer good pieces of pottery than the group that spent their time doing pottery. If you do pottery, you become better at doing pottery. If you run, you become better at running. If you learn, you become better at learning. If you put on tefillin, you become better at putting on tefillin. If you engage in hachnas zarchim, in hospitality, or in chesed, you become better at doing it. That's the secret of movement. Is that as we move, we become better at it physically, and it changes who we are psychologically and spiritually. And that's ultimately the primary avoda of being an Eved HaMelech, which is what Rosh Hashanah is all about. It's about learning how to move, how to engage, how to do, much more than it is about meditating upon thoughts and ideas. There's only one day a year that a Jew takes their time exclusively to stop. That's what's called Shabbat Shabbatan, Yom Kippur. The ultimate day that exists outside of the world of action. It just exists in the world of speech and the world of thought. So we think and we speak. Every other day, we bounce immediately from that to Sukkot. Immediately. Which is a lulav, which the idea is to shake it. And a sukkah, where we have to build it and then sit in it. And hakafas, which is dancing around. And hashamas, and you beat the aravas on the ground. It's all activities. It's all the world of action and activities. It's all the world of movement. Because moving is what changes us as people. Thinking and speaking do not. I read a little while ago, I don't remember where, somebody had a very good mashal. You'd imagine for a second, you have somebody that has the greatest ideas in the whole wide world. So they're living in a world of thought. But they don't bring any of it to action. What do you, the outsider, think of them? You don't know their thoughts. Thoughts don't exist in our world. We can only ascertain, we can only give a judgment call about a human being based on their actions. We cannot judge a person's thoughts we don't know. And nobody can judge yours either. Which means that without living in the world of action and activity, ultimately what we're doing is we are leaving the most important parts of ourselves out of this world. We're living in lofty, higher realms. But you didn't need to be alive for that. It's where our neshamas were beforehand. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us here, Asher bara Elokim la'asos. Not just to think, not just to speak, but to move. So I want to wish everybody a beautiful Erev Shabbos. It should be a good Shabbos. It should be a good last Shabbos of the year. Tichle Shana V'Kil Seha, that the year and all of its curses of last week should be over and end. That our Chaverim and Chaveris, all of the Kehillas in New York that are struggling, that are suffering, Rahman al-Islam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give refuah and slicha and kapara and tshuva to everybody, and a hatzlacha for all of the rescue efforts. And that's for our Chaver in New York, Chaver in New Orleans. There's a lot of terrorists in the world. There's still soldiers that American civilians, allies that are stuck in Afghanistan, we're davening for them as well. All of the curses should end. We should make a commitment to the Rebbeinu Shalom that this year will be a year of action. It should be a world of asiyah, a world of maisa, a world of Asher bara Elokim la'asos. I want to wish you hatzlacha. And it should be a chesiv chesimatay v'la'alta chaim tovim shalom, that Hashem should give you and me and all of us all of the tools that we need to live in the world of action, to live in the world of activity, and to succeed therein. Wishing you all a beautiful Shabbos, and we'll see you next time.